I'm a freaking weirdo. I'm a crazy goat lady. I love miniature goats. I love chickens. Like I've got all these weird, crazy interests. And I just started just letting my inner weirdo shine, right? And
this is the equation that I came up with right now.
Okay.
Reps plus environment equals confidence and progress.
For us, the operational aspect is not a lift. Like we set it up in a way where it's very easy to produce consistently. There's a system behind so we don't run out of gas. So that's another one.
AKA get your brother to do it.
I'm ready. Are you ready, Fonzie?
I'm ready. Let's do this.
All right, here we go.
We've got some
Hey, I'm Luis.
And this is Luis.
And welcome to the Content is Profit podcast.
And in here, you're going to get the insights, accountability, and drive to create consistently and increase revenue.
You'll hear from top entrepreneurs, creators, and anything and everything you need to know about content. All this while having a great time.
The goal of this podcast is simple: to entertain, educate, and turn your content into profit.
Let's go. That was good.
That was
Was
smooth.
that the new intro?
That is the new intro.
I had to rewrite that initial sentence because, like,
you were kind of laughing at the beginning. And this is Luis. You're like, what?
what's happening? Anyways, today, Fonzie, we have a special topic. Tell me what we're gonna be talking about today. I need to slow down.
Yeah, slow down. Guys, I know you're confused. You're confused because you're only hearing from one side. We got these new headphones. We're testing them, so you know some things might change.
It feels off a little bit. Just gonna put that out there.
You'll see why. Today, guys, we're talking all about entrepreneurship and publishing as an introvert.
I know. Just know. I mean, the things that this person has done is incredible. And we're gonna share them in just a second. But yes, you are right. We are back with a brand new episode of Content is Profit with another incredible guest. And today we're rocking our new pair of beats thanks to Hotspot Podcast Network and Hotspot Creator Programs. Baby, let's go. There's some kinks I need to work with the equipment, but you know, thank you.
Yeah, we definitely need to prep a little bit better. You know, plug test the connections and all that stuff.
We just got him like 5 minutes ago, so we're like, let's just rock him today.
So far, they're pretty awesome.
Yeah.
If you will see the video, you can see the naming and everything. There we go, guys. But today's guest is someone that has broken beyond the challenges of introverted shyness to become an author, public speaker, and of course, a podcaster.
Not just that, she's a master networker that thrives by building powerful and meaningful relationships, which we know is the key to building a strong business.
That is right. Please welcome author of Overcoming Awkward. Now you know why I talked about the word awkward. And host of the Juggling Without Balls podcast, Monica Parkin. Hello,
awesome.
Monica.
Thank you.
Welcome.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
You can tell we are extremely excited too. We were getting all nervous, you know, dropping the inexistent balls around. We're like, oh my gosh, what are we doing today? And it's all because we are in presence of greatness.
Monica, I am super excited to dive into the conversation a little bit. You know, you have a little book in the background there. So for those listening, please go. Can you tell us like what the book?
Yeah, it's called, well, you mentioned it, Overcoming Awkward, The Introvert's Guide to Networking, Marketing, and Sales. I was sitting around in the pandemic one day thinking, wow, I don't have to do this morning commute, this afternoon commute. I'm scrolling through social media and I see this thing for 30-day book writing challenge. And I was like, ooh, I've got an hour in the morning, an hour in the afternoon. Like, this sounds really interesting. And so I signed up for it. But the first assignment on the first day was like, figure out what your book's going to be about. And I'm like, oh, shoot, like, I have no idea. I have nothing. And then it was like, well, what's a challenge that you've overcome? And then immediately, obviously, it came to me because, I may not look like that person now, but I was just totally socially awkward, shy. Like, my first networking event I ever had to go to, I walked in the door, turned around, looked around, and went back out to my car. And I was like, can I phone in sick? Like, what do I do here? Right. So, yeah. So that's where the book came from.
Oh, that's awesome. By the way, amazing. 30 days and you wrote a book. So, there's some people that spend like years, or they spend years thinking about writing a book, or, there's so many things. And I think in our connection call, we talked a little bit about removing that friction, and we're like, oh my gosh, like this is so awesome. So I'm very interested, like, what made you actually take that leap and be like, I'm ready, right? Like go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I think it was having that 30-day deadline, right? If it was a year or 2 years, I would have just put it off and put it off, put it off. I'm one of those people. I have a little ADHD, but I work really good with like a tight deadline. And the closer the deadline gets, the harder I work. So having that like 30-day deadline in front of me, I just had to like hunker down and do it and pull stuff out in a way that maybe I wouldn't have before. And then being a speaker, I actually did a lot of writing audibly. So I would record myself talking and then go back and transcribe it. Or I just put on some music and set the timer and just type whatever, regurge whatever came out for 10 minutes and then edit it later.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that is awesome. I'm pretty curious. Like, when did you notice being an introverted maybe wasn't, I don't want to say wasn't, but you probably noticed that it couldn't be beneficial in certain environments, or when did you notice the need of maybe stepping a little bit more outside of your comfort zone in terms of business?
Yeah, well, I'm going to say for like the first 35 years of my life, it served me beautifully. I was like, this is the best thing ever. I don't know why everyone's not an introvert. You just stay home. You don't talk to people, like no stress, no drama. It's the best thing ever. But then I'd been working with this mortgage broker and we'd done everything by like phone and email. And I was like, this is a perfect career. I can just stay home and talk to people by email. Like I didn't get the memo that that's not actually everything a mortgage broker does. So I went and I took the course and I'm all excited. And, I go to sign up with a brokerage and they're like, you need to go there and build relationships. You're going to have to talk to people. You're going to have to bring business in. And I was like, what? Like, nobody told me this. Like someone should have told me this before I took the course. And that was when I realized like what I thought was this awesome thing that I loved about myself was now kind of going to be a bit of a handicap if I didn't do some work.
Yeah, absolutely. How did that work look like at the very beginning? Because I'm sure it was very challenging, right? I mean, from our point of view, when we started, producing the podcast the very first time, it was scary. I personally would get what I call the sweaty pits because I'll be nervous of sharing my messages, like speaking out loud to a potential audience because we didn't even have an audience at that time, right? And I was just making it all up and I was just getting all nervous. I can't even imagine how it feels, being fully an introvert and then having all of a sudden to step out into the real world and, build these relationships. How did that work look like?
Yeah, and I'm not kidding when I say I almost quit a few times, right? Like I literally almost quit. It was so terrifying. I would lay awake at night. But, I guess I kind of had to do that little mind shift thing. And A, I had to do it little tiny baby steps so it wasn't overwhelming. And B, I just kept telling myself, like, just try it for a month, right? And then at the end of the month, if you can't do it, then you can quit. And I get to the end of that month, and I go one more month, right? If I'd said this is going to be your career for the rest of your life or whatever, then I would have just melted down. So I had to break it into little tiny steps. So if I go back for 1 second to that networking event, because that was the first freaky thing I did, went back out to the car, sat there for a few minutes thinking about how am I going to get out of this? And my coworker shows up. And so I'm like, well, now I can't get out of it. I got to go in. I got to do it. So I'm walking around that room and I'm thinking, well, how do you do this networking thing? You're supposed to shake people's hands. You tell them all about your business. So I'm like shaking people's hands. I can get you the best interest rate. I'm sell myself. And I'm thinking I did awesome. Like I just killed it. Right. And then I get home at the end of the night and I'm looking at all these business cards in my hand and I'm like, well, I don't know these people. Like, what am I going to do with these? And I throw them in the fire. And as I'm doing that, I'm like, oh, if I'm throwing out their business cards, like they're throwing out mine. Like that thing I just did that was super hard. Probably didn't do anything for my business. And that was when I was like, there's got to be a different way. I don't know what it is, but there's got to be a different way to do this. Yeah.
I love that epiphany. That moment when you're like,
you just like, you could see the light bulb just come on and you're just like,
you're just like dive into the fire. Like, oh no.
Yeah.
Monica, when Fonzie was saying like his experience when we started publishing, if I say I would relate to that, I think I would be lying because I think like,
because you're more of an extrovert.
I am more of an extrovert, right? Like initially. And I think I've always chased those moments where like I need to be in front of people or I need to be like telling a bad joke or whatever, right? Like it's those situations. If it's like an unknown situation, I might go in with more caution. But like to me, my personal story was like, I'm going to talk to the mic and then I hear my voice and it was like amazing. Like I loved it. I was like, what? Right. And people are like, what? Are you insane?
What is wrong with you?
I know. What's wrong with you?
I'm just going to say that sounded so self-centered, but I'm not going to lie. That was both our reactions.
That was
Yeah.
true. I mean,
it was like, man, this radio voice is kind of cool. It's kind of cool.
and you know, like it came. I think the fear, I think that's the right word, came with not the act of doing the thing, but thinking about what other people were gonna say, like that already knew us. I think like it came more from that side than actually doing the thing. So when I hear you speak or when Fonzie share his story, like I see like an extra layer to that. So I had a hard time with the message side of things initially, right? With like, do we actually believe in what we're saying? Do we actually like believe in this thing? Do we actually see the results of the processes that we share every single day? Initially, that was my friction point. It was not the act of saying it. So do you notice that too, as well as an introvert, where it's like this like double layer, or it's like this mountain that you like have to climb? Because there's a lot of business owners out there, right? That I understand that they know, but they might not be like me, that don't have that initial filter. So I'm very curious, like what are some steps like that you did to overcome those initial layers, right, of introvert?
Totally. Yeah, I think there is another whole layer, right? So the layer you're talking about is that fear of judgment, fear of meeting other people's expectations. And then as an introvert, because you don't go out much and you don't talk to a lot of people, I actually physically didn't know what to do. Like, how long is too long to maintain eye contact? Like, where do I put my hands? Where do I stand? When do I move on to the next person? Like, what's funny, not like, is this too deep of a question? Is it too shallow? Like, how do you navigate the small talk thing? Like, there was just so many things that were overwhelming for me, on top of the stuff you're talking about. Like, well, what if people don't like it? Or what if they judge me, or whatever, right? And so I reached out. Well, one of the pieces of advice, it sounds the corniest, but it was the best advice I ever got. And people are just going to roll their eyes when I tell you this. I'm just going to warn you ahead of time. But so I reached out to people that were just killing it in my industry, that were doing really well. And I'm like, what do you do? Do you buy leads? Do you find ads? Like, what? I'm doing everything. Nothing's working. And they're like, you know, you just got to be yourself, right? And I was like, oh, this is just crap. Like, I so regret phoning you, right? And then I phoned the next one. They said the same thing, and I was just like, I remember stomping around the house, being mad, talking to my husband, like, dude, just like be yourself, blah blah blah. Like, I want some real advice, right? Yeah. But then I thought about it, and I'm like, well, I'll just try it, right? So instead of going on social media and talking about why I'm so great at my business, or I can give you the best interest rate, or trying to sell people something, I started like just being me. Like, I'm a freaking weirdo. I'm a crazy goat lady. I love miniature goats. I love chickens. Like, I've got all these weird, crazy interests. And I just started just letting my inner weirdo shine, right? And people started to connect to that in a way that like I was showing people a part of me that I've never showed before. And people were connecting with me in a way that I've never been, you know, that they haven't before. And then connecting me to my business. So I always use the hashtag Mortgage Monica because I happen to be in the mortgage business. But then I post pictures of me with my goats, or talking, whatever those things are that make me me. And I knew it wasn't like, I went into the vet one day with my little baby goats. I dropped them off. They said, come back in an hour. We're super busy. So I come back in an hour, and they're like, hey, are you Mortgage Monica? Is that you? And I'm like, well, what do you mean? They're like, 3 people came in today and said, like, those are Mortgage Monica's goats. That's Butterscotch. And that's Caramel. And I've seen her all over Instagram. Like, is she here? And it was just funny that, you know, as soon as you actually get to be you, whoever you are, and have real conversations with people, that's when, you know, all those barriers come down. You get less nervous. They feel more of a connection to you. And, you know, that's kind of where the magic starts to happen.
Do you remember the first time that you were like, you know, screw this, I'm going to share about the goats? Do you remember like the first, like maybe piece of content that you put out there? Like,
yeah, honestly, it was a picture of me in my gumboots out in the barn and like 3 inches of goat poop. Like, I won't say the S word on your show, but it was just like, hey, this is me. This is how I hang out at the end of the day. And, you know, I had more likes, more comments. I had someone reach out to me, go, hey, I hear you're a mortgage broker. I got a farm property. It looks like you have a farm. Can you help me out with that? Like, I wasn't even asking for business. I was just like, this is who I am, dude. Like, just, you know, and it was really cool.
That is so cool. Have you made the goats part of your brand now?
They have become part of my brand. When I see people now, even like, I just went to go speak in Toronto. Like, I live 9 hours from there on the other side of the country. And someone's like, I wasn't going to come. And then I heard the goat lady was coming.
The goat lady.
You're the goat lady, right? And like, they don't even know my name. They just know I'm like the crazy goat lady.
That's funny.
That is very funny.
And I love it.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a few key points here for people to understand. First is, you know, that a little bit, yes, it is cliche advice, but be yourself, right? And we actually talked here on the show a few times before about the three P's of differentiation, right? Like, how can you differentiate yourself in the marketplace? It can be your product. It can be so unique that just the product itself, can be a cause of differentiation. It can be your processes, right? You can actually be delivering the same thing as another company, but your process can make you very unique in the way you do this. And the third one is personality. Just lean in on who you really are. And it sounds like that is the way you have been able to, craft your brand, right? You lean into who you are. You're like, you know what? Screw this. I'm going to show myself into the world. I'm going to share what I love, what I enjoy, the goats, right? And now people know you, as the goat lady. Some people, right?
And that's how at least that's how you start your brand, right? And then if you're not good at what you do, it doesn't matter how funny your personality is or how unique you are. It's not going to stick, right? You're going to throw stuff at the wall and it's going to fall off. But if you can do those three things, have the great product, have the great brand, and be really good at what you do. Because I tell people that it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter how good you are at what you do if people don't know who you are. And it doesn't matter how great your personality is if you're really bad at what you do. Like, you've got to tie the two of those things together. But when you get both those pieces, you're just on fire.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not gonna lie, we used or same name as leverage every single time that we meet somebody, right? And now people, when they see us, they're like, oh, you guys are Luis and Luis, the brothers with the same freaking name. And we're like, yes, thank you, Mom, we really appreciate it, right? Great marketing move. But it is that at the end of the day, are you doing a good job when it comes to fulfillment and when it comes to actually helping your clients? Because yes, differentiating yourself is only going to take you so far. You might manage to get people's attention, but then how are you holding on to that attention, right? And I'm curious, let's say you start these interactions, right? You're introvert, but now you're opening up, you start building more relationships. What are you doing as an introvert then to keep those relationships and maintain them? Because it takes an effort, right? It takes effort and intention to build relationships.
It does, yeah. And one of the things I've figured out along the way, just if you look at the research around introverts versus extroverts, one isn't better. They both can be extremely amazing at what they do. Look at you guys, a dynamic duo here. But one of the places that introverts shine is really deep listening. Maybe they're not talking so much, but they can listen really deeply. And when they listen really deeply, they hear problems. When they hear problems, then they think deeply and they come up with solutions. So they're really good problem solvers. So they may take a little longer to get that relationship started, but once they get it going, it's a deep, meaningful relationship.
Yeah.
So maybe I only make 3 or 4 relationships a month. I don't work a room and make 20 best friends in the same night. But once I connect with those people, I can just keep that going with this meaningful interactions.
I think I love this, right? Because we've gone into places and we've thought strategically who maybe we need to meet, who we need to actually pay attention to, depending on what the room is. We recently came out of one of the biggest events that we've been since COVID happened. And, the whole focus was let's just continue to develop the relationships that we built over the show, right? There was a ton of amazing content, but for us, the most valuable thing was reconnecting with the people that came into our show that we've connected before. And we maybe heard a couple of sessions and we were able to speak as well. But with that strategic approach, right? Sometimes we fall into these buckets of labeling of hey, I'm an extrovert or hey, I'm an introvert. And then we go and we act that way. But I personally feel that there's a middle ground. There's a gray ground that you can still develop. If me as an extrovert, I can still develop some of that aptitude from an introvert, right? Be okay, they're great listeners. Maybe I should be paying more attention to very specific relationships that I'm forming, right? That's something that we've been able to do with the show at scale, where it's okay, who are the people that we really want to connect with? Why? There's different things, right? And I think it's working the room of the world. What are your thoughts on that? Are you I'm an introvert and this is what I own and this is what I do and I don't deviate from here? Or
honestly, I think over time I become an omnivert. I'm not truly an extrovert, but I can mimic an extrovert, right? I can totally get into that headspace and enjoy myself. But I also spend a lot of time now focusing, and I think you guys do this too, but how can I connect people to other people, right? Like, how can I help you grow your business? And then that reciprocity thing comes back to me, right? I don't go, how can I help you, thinking you're going to do something in return for me? But whenever you do that, like, it kind of naturally flows back to you. And the other thing is, like, people notice people who notice them, right? Like when I reach out to someone, go, oh my God, I saw your talk, it was awesome, blah, blah, blah. Or I went to your restaurant, I had a meal, it was fantastic. And I leave a review. All of a sudden I'm on their radar. Like, I didn't do it to get on their radar, but when someone compliments you, when they notice you, when they do something to elevate you, all of a sudden, like, it's just human nature. Like, they become more likable to you, right? And you have an interest in what they're doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Connecting people has been, it's a joy, honestly. It's pretty nice to see connecting somebody and then actually seeing them build that relationship. But from the business standpoint, it is, I'll say, one of the probably most underutilized or talked strategies, if you want to put it out there, right? But honestly, like, we don't even see it as a strategy. We just see it as, you're cool and your relationship with this person could potentially benefit each other. Let's connect you guys, right? Yeah. So I want to encourage, the listener right now to think about those relationships that you guys are keeping close, that you guys are nurturing, and think about, who can I introduce them that can make their life a little bit better? And honestly, it's a great way to nurture their relationships, because pretty much every time they talk to that other person that you're introducing them, they're gonna think about you, because they're. Oh, go ahead, please.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say exactly, right? Like, someone else introduced me to you, or you and I to each other. We got an email, and oh my gosh, the name's falling out of my head right now. So
Steve,
that's who it was. Thank you. And so every time I think about this podcast, I think about him, right? And thinking about, well, how can I help him out sometime or whatever, but not doing it because of that. But yeah, and then the other thing I wanted to mention too, like, I used to fear connection, right? I used to be afraid of relationships. Like, if it's going to be more stress, it's going to be drama, it's going to be one more person I got to keep in touch with. But somewhere along the way, like, I look forward to connection. I actually find joy in connection now. I wake up in the morning and go, who can I connect to today? Because it brings me joy rather than something to be afraid of.
Absolutely. I'm curious, is your main business right now just the mortgages, or like, have you diversified to like public speaking as well?
Totally diversified. I actually don't do what we call underwriting mortgages anymore, where you work directly with clients and do their stuff. I actually just do business development for the brokerage. So I go out and build relationships, talk to people, and then I hand those off to someone else that actually wants the business, wants to do the work. And now I do more public speaking, marketing the book, public speaking, my podcast, stuff that brings me joy, which is funny because all the stuff that I used to be afraid of is the stuff that I most look forward to in my day now. And that was, I think, just taking little baby steps and then noticing what worked about it. Like, for me, it was literally I'm going to talk to the cashier at the grocery store today, because normally I would go in head down, like, don't talk to me, lady. And I woke up one day, I'm like, okay, you're going to tell yourself this week that you like meeting people and you like talking to people, and just keep telling yourself that, even if it's not true. And so I get to the grocery store and she starts to talk to me, and my gut reaction is, don't talk to me. And I'm like, no, you told yourself this morning, like, you like talking to people. So then I had a conversation with her. And then I found out this item I was buying was actually on sale, and something cool came out of it. And then later I talked to someone else and they told me something else that was cool. So at the end of the day, I kind of went through and I took a catalog of like, okay, these are the people I talked to. This is the cool stuff that came out of it, and just look for evidence that it was benefiting me. And now I don't even need to do that. But in the beginning, I needed to do that to kind of change that belief system and change that mindset for myself.
Yeah. That's pretty interesting take, kind of like keeping inventory of the benefits of doing something outside of your comfort zone that might be a little bit scary. I remember, I don't remember who mentioned this, but it was somewhere along the lines that, entrepreneurs specifically, they just beat themselves up all the time because, once you achieve something, you're just moving on to the next bigger goal, and you don't really recognize those little wins. And I think that goes along with taking inventory of what you've achieved, right? And when you look back and look at those little wins, and I think my brother's looking at me because I'm pretty guilty of this. I do this all the time. He has to remind me.
100%. It's part of my my daily list of items. It's like, what happened yesterday? Where are the wins? Let's go over them. Let's remind them.
Yeah, when you don't remind yourself of those, when you don't take inventory, right? Like, you stop probably appreciating the process, being grateful, which is going to help you to achieve that bigger goal. And if you just forget about it, you just probably just going to be focused on the problem. You're going to be too focused on the problem to actually probably benefit from it. So I love that, taking inventory of how this specific action benefited me in the long term.
Yeah. And even when it feels like it didn't, right? Even when something's like a total flop, instead of going, well, I screwed that up, this is no good, this sucks, going like, well, like, what was the silver lining in this? Like, what did this teach me, and what can I do differently next time, and finding that little nugget piece and moving forward. But yeah, I related to what you're saying. I remember someone saying to me once, like, it's like, I just hit the goalpost and then I keep heading for the next goal. I don't stop and be like, yeah. And that, when he said that to me, I thought, you know what, I do the same thing. Like, I need to stop and celebrate the little wins instead of just like running for the next one. Like, spend some time here.
Yeah.
So you said you have a question. Okay, I'll let you talk.
Thank you.
I've been taking over. That happens a lot.
The introvert's taking over.
Maybe I'm going to transition out of this, but I'm very curious. What was first, the book, the podcast, or speaking?
Oh, good question. So I started with speaking at a little Toastmasters meeting just because I wanted to be able to like go do a first-time homebuyer seminar or something. Walked in the room, sat down, didn't speak for like 3 meetings, and then started to get comfortable because people were giving me good feedback. Like, hey, you're an okay speaker, and every week someone would give me a little something and it would boost my confidence. So I started with speaking, realized I loved speaking. Like, I love that hit you get from an audience where you just feel amazing. And then thought, well, what's another way I can speak? Because I'm not good enough to get speaking gigs yet. So I'm like, well, I can make my own podcast and I can talk to other women who are super successful, and I get to hear their stories, and I, get to speak. And so I did the podcast, and then the book came last. And then after the book, I actually speak professionally, but there was definitely a progression.
That's so cool.
Yeah. I'm noticing a little kind of like trend here, right? I mean, we've talked about it. To get better at something, you got to do the reps, you got to put in the reps. But I think something key here is that you also surrounded yourself in the right environment, right? You said you did Toastmasters, which for those that are not familiar with Toastmasters, I might be butchering the description, but it's pretty much a group that meets, maybe let's say once a month.
And drink and toast. And,
and you guys practice public speaking, and I'm guessing there's some sort of feedback from the group in there.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, I'm still in my Toastmasters group. Like 5 years later,
Wow,
we still meet every week for an hour, and there's like phenomenal speakers in it. And I always thought it was just like learning to make toasts at weddings, but it's so much more. It's all about like feedback, and that's the best part of it. And the feedback is always like 90% positive, and then like, hey, by the way, you could improve this a little bit by doing that. So you always walk away feeling amazing. But also with a little something you could make better.
Yeah.
Right? And it's just a great place.
What are some of the
place.
Wait, this is the equation that I came up with right now.
Okay.
Reps plus environment equals confidence and progress.
Yeah. And like I sometimes use a soccer player analogy, right? If you want to be a great soccer player, you don't just go play soccer once a year and teach yourself. You do it every day, and you surround yourself with great teammates and coaches and people that make you feel better, and then you get better by repetition. Yeah,
absolutely. I love that you use,
because like it never got better. Sorry.
I was born the best. That's why it's impossible to be better once you're the best.
That was a good comeback. We're gonna
appreciate it. So I love that you use the soccer example though, because even though my brother is wearing a baseball jersey right now, we are soccer players. So that can be a conversation for another. That's super tangent. You wanted to say something before.
So a lot of the people, right, that listen to the show might be starting out in content, or they're trying to find their footing in like consistency, or like they're trying to start a platform. Like lately, we've been working with a few people that are starting their own podcasting platform and their system. And there's a lot of like back end techie things that you gotta keep an eye out. But like on the speaking side, right? Like once it's funny because people get a lot of this is the impression I get with the feedback of the community that we've been able to like start, right? Like a lot of the questions come from what is the equipment, where do I stream, where do I do this, and it's like all this distraction around the act of doing it, and then when everything is set up that it's time to do it, we drop the ball. We're like, we have the whole cameras, we have the thing, so like on speaking, or maybe it's not the best interview initially, which is totally normal, right? Like what are some of the most impactful tips maybe that you grab from from your group, from Toastmasters, and that you continue to implement every day?
Yeah, interesting, because my obstacles was all the stuff that you were talking about. Like, I was like, well, I don't know how to do it, blah, 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 blah. And I kept putting it off and putting it off. And someone said to me, like, why don't you just hire someone to do all that crap? Like, just do what you're good at. You're good at talking to people. So I ended up hiring a podcast producer. But yeah, just recording that first one, I kept wanting to put it, like, I'd have it scheduled and then I'd be like, oh, maybe we should reschedule. I'm not ready, but just do it. It's like jumping in the water. Like, just do it. It's not going to be perfect. In fact, the first one, I forgot to hit the record button. So I had to call my guest back and go, you know what? I really love that you spent an hour with me today and it was amazing and none of it recorded. Can we come back and do that tomorrow? Right? So like stuff's going to go wrong, but then that turned into a joke on the actual one. So then we got to talk about how we screwed that up. And she's like, she had this big Post-it note that said hit record when we started.
That's awesome. That's so
Turn
good.
it into a big fun thing. And but also just if you had a fear of spiders, you wouldn't lock yourself in a room full of spiders, right? So if you have a fear of public speaking, don't start with an audience of 1,000, right? Start with like a one-on-one interview or something that's recorded, and then step it up to live, and then step it up to a bigger audience. But like just a little at a time, not just, the hardest thing you can think of to do.
Dive in.
I know. I feel like sometimes that's my solution. I'm like, I'm just going to go all in. And then you just burned out at the end of the day. I like the going one step at a time. It's a very viable solution.
And I feel like I don't know, you guys do this all the time, but I started with weekly. And after 2 months, I was like, I can't keep this up. Like, there's no way I can keep up this pace of the whole recording and the editing and the booking. And so I went to every 2 weeks, and all of a sudden I was enjoying it again, because I went from enjoying it, I love it, to I hate it, I never want to record another episode, it's too hard, to oh, now I'm enjoying it again. Like, I had to find that little happy place where it wasn't eating up too much of my life, but it was still something I was enjoying.
Yeah.
What you just mentioned is such an important element to content creation in general, right? Like, because same thing, like when we first started, we were like, who's the person that we want to mimic or we want to model? And it's like 3,000 posts a day, right? And we're like, okay, let's do it. And then after like 2 hours of trying to edit one thing, you're like, no, I'm done, right? And a lot of people like go there, and it sucks, because the message that these people have to share with the world or their business, like, it's just so, like, people need that, right? So there's one thing in the publishing pyramid that we talk about your resources, your own capacity. So I love that you identify that. Like, you were like, okay, this is not serving me, right? At the end of the day, content has to serve us initially, so we can actually be consistent to do this thing. There's a reason we do it 3 times a week. For us, the operational aspect is not a lift. Like, we set it up in a way where it's very easy to produce consistently. There's a system behind, so we don't run out of gas. So that's another one.
AKA, get your brother to do it.
Hey, just gonna put this out there. By the way, we're hiring. If you're listening and you are a podcast producer, we're hiring. So all thing podcast. So send us a message. But also, you offered, because that was my job before. But anyway, so because so here's full disclosure, right? I'm very lazy, right? So I'm trying to find a ways to, like, how can we make this very optimal? There's a reason we do the intro live. There's a reason we do the outro live. There's no post production. It's grabbing this file and put it in there. Mr. Perfectionist here, that recovering perfectionist, may I say, is really good at the other side of things, the descriptions and the written part, which I'm not good at. So again, find that. You found your podcast producer that helped you do that thing. But I love the fact that you were like, I'm okay with maybe twice a month, right?
Yeah, because there's a lot of pressure to do it weekly. Everyone's like, if you don't do it weekly, you're going to lose followers, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, but if I'm not doing it at all, I'm going to have no followers.
Exactly.
Like, I have to find the sweet spot.
That's so good. That's so awesome. That's awesome. And, there's a few elements that I like caught in our conversation with, like, the positive pressure when you put that 30-day deadline for the book, right? There's a lot of people like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. Well, if you put that event in the calendar, it's going to, pull you forward. You're going to execute. And I think that's a big element that a lot of people need to do. Whether you're thinking about writing a book, launching a podcast, put that date in the calendar and tell it to everybody. Like, you'll make sure that you get it done.
Yeah, and I had to actually schedule a guest to get it done, right? Because if I didn't have that date scheduled and I didn't have someone showing up and I knew that they'd put time aside for it, I would have just kept putting it off. Like, because I originally wanted to do a solo podcast, but I just kept putting it off. And I'm like, no, if I schedule that guest and I know she's showing up and she's waiting for me, then I'm going to show up. And then I got the first one done. And it's like, okay, well, that wasn't so bad. I can do this again. And so now I can mix and mingle them. But yeah, having that, whatever that thing is, it's going to make you show up, just putting that anchor post there.
I'm sorry. I'm going to repeat this again. Reps plus environment equals confidence and progress. You put yourself in an environment with a guest that you will get it done, right? For us, for example, yes, a lot of the time, most of the time, we have incredible guests, but there's times where it's only the two of us. But we are our environment, so whenever I don't want to do it, he pushes me and he's like, no, we got to do it, right? We got to get stuff done.
Monica, let me tell you, Friday was a big lift. I was like, you don't want to do it? Let's do it. And he's like, I still don't want. No, he was sick. So I ended up doing one episode.
He did a solo episode.
And
sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, you guys had to do an episode because I didn't show up the first time. I had my date wrong and I didn't show up. And you're texting me like, are you coming? And I wasn't even checking my phone because I had it on the wrong day. And then you're like, okay, we're doing a solo episode. So you guys must have had to just roll it out on the spot, right?
That's part of the
backup. I apologize, by the way. I publicly apologize.
No, it's okay. Fine. I mean, you're a high demand public speaking international. So like
you're probably with your goats. Let's be real. You're probably hanging out with the goats, enjoying life. So
you're like, the brothers don't make the cut.
Were you doing goat yoga? Is that what you were doing?
Well, there may have been goat yoga involved. Yeah. I don't know for sure, but it's very possible.
But thank you for acknowledging that too, because, there is a plan B, right? Like what happens, like worst case scenario, guests might not show up. There's elements that are out of the control. Sometimes it's an emergency. Sometimes it's a calendar mix up. Like there's different things that happen that is nobody's fault. But again, is that going to hinder your ability to produce something, to create, right? So I think that's an approach that we've taken, that even plan B is always a solo episode, and we're always on the lookout for things that we can talk about on the show, because this is our main form of communication with the audience.
And if not, here comes a golden boulder. If you don't have anything to talk about at the moment, guess what? You can talk about something that you already talked before. Look at that. It's totally okay to talk about the same things. Usually we have like the same couple topics and we just present them in different ways as well, right? Different stories, different analogies, and then we just figure out how to make it entertaining. We fight a little bit, to spice it up through the podcast, but it's fun to have a way to something to fall back just in case something unexpected happens.
Monica, do you have some action, like practical action points, maybe for people that are starting to publish, right? Whether that's a book or whether that's a podcast for their business, right? They're trying to connect both of them. What are some things that you can share with them that they can do today?
Or for my brother that is very awkward, so he can overcome it. So
for me, it's always seek help about stuff you don't know, because when I don't know how to do something, I just freeze up and I get like that whole analysis paralysis. What do I do? Blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Right. So I got to a point where the book was written, but then I'm like, well, do I self-publish? Do I find a publisher? What format do I use? How do I choose a cover? And I got stuck there for like 4 months. Like the book only took 30 days, but then 4 months after, I'm just stuck in this paralysis and someone's like, well, why don't you reach out to someone who's an editor? Like, why don't you get someone that knows how to do that? So, that's what I did is I found this lady who was awesome and, went through the book, sent it back to me and said, like, these are the changes, we need to make. And I'm like, oh, cool. Do you know anyone that does covers? And she's like, actually, I have someone on my team that does covers. I'm like, oh, do you know anything about how to upload to Amazon? I actually do that too. And so all of a sudden, like all these obstacles that were so hard that were freezing me up, just by reaching out and outsourcing the things that I didn't know how to do, it became so easy. And now next time, and as we did it, she'd show me a bit and I'd learn a bit. And so maybe the next one, maybe I'll publish that myself, or maybe I won't. But for me, it's when I get frozen like that, it's either I have too much information, I don't know how to make a decision and I need someone to help me with it, or I literally don't know what to do and I'm overwhelmed by trying to learn it. So I need to outsource it.
So good.
You just gave the framework for the rest of my life. Thank you.
Funny, but we laugh because this morning
it's true.
we had like this very intense conversation this morning after our team meetings, and this came up, right? So I'm very happy. Thank you, Monica, for sharing that. And again,
you're welcome. I don't know what it was, but I'm gonna trust.
No, but it's true, right? Like we think sometimes that we might need all the answers, or we need to figure out the answer, right? And even if the past, because it's happened to me too, right? Like I've asked and we've invested, and we go ask the people that have done it in the past and XYZ, and then sometimes we have like this other problem and we're trying to figure out, right? On the company side, like on our in the agency side, we're helping a client right now, and there's going to be a massive book launch in the next like 3-4 months. And we had like a whole day meeting. It was like an 8-hour meeting on a Sunday. which was incredible with all the key parts of this team. And then we came to realize at the end of the meeting that there was nobody on that team, even though everybody was amazing, nobody that had launched a book before. And we're like, what are we doing? Right. So we had a bunch of ideas, and now, we're bringing somebody in that has done it for multiple, and they've done traditional TV, radio, like a bunch of stuff with multiple proven books and proven frameworks. And we're like, sweet, like this is what we came up with. Like, is there everything wrong or everything right? So we're going to find out next week to see how that goes. But again, same thing. Like sometimes it's such an easy thing to do, but we don't see it, right? Like so thank you for sharing that. By the way, if you missed it, minute 37, seek help with what you need help with.
Yeah, seek help for sure. Yeah. And in terms of like the actual concrete answer to your question, like something that someone can use today that's useful, one of the best piece of advice I got was get reviews before the book is published. Like send it out to people, get those reviews ready to go so that the day it publishes, there's going to be a bunch of reviews there for people, and it just adds that whole credibility piece, right? That was really good advice it was given to me.
That's pretty good. I think that applies honestly for anything business, not just a book. Just build social proof, right? Rapport with the people that are going to be purchasing or engaging at all. I mean, are you going to do a new offer launch? Guess what? Do a beta test group and then get their testimonials, post them on the sales page. Are you going to launch a podcast? Get some testimonials from some people that maybe you've been on their podcast, or some of your friends that have heard you talk, and get them to give you a review and put it on your podcast page. I think that is a key action point right there.
Yeah. Monica, where would you be if you didn't publish?
Where would I be if I didn't publish? I mean, if I didn't have the book, it really accelerated a lot of stuff for me. It accelerated, like just having a book out there, is instant credibility, right? Oh, you've written a book on the topic, you must know about it. But in terms of speaking engagements, it's just like blown up my opportunity for speaking engagements, podcasts, TV appearances, things like that. Like I needed some help with someone to get me placed on the first few. But once you've got them, then all of a sudden, one TV episode turns into, oh, can you call my friend who's a producer? They'd love to have you on their show. And and so one turns into another. Awesome. But yeah, it's just to open up a world of opportunities. I would recommend it for anyone. And this is from someone who totally thought they could never, ever write a book. One thing my kid said to me, that I may or may not have some pretty significant ADHD, is when I said I was going to do it in 30 days and I was freaking out. He's like, Mom, this is perfect for you. Like that is a perfect amount of time for you to hyperfixate on something. Like this, what you're experiencing right now is called hyperfixation, and it's going to wear off in about 30 days. So if you can hammer this book out in 30 days, you're golden, like it'll be done. And so now when I take on a new project, I've got like his voice in my head saying, this is a hyperfixation. Do it now while you want it really bad,
so good.
And it kind of pushes me through the hard work, and then you can coast from there, because now you're past the hard work. But whether it's starting a podcast, writing a book, whatever, do it while you're in that phase where you're super excited about it, because that's when you're gonna really get it done.
I'm gonna do some research around that hyperfixation. I think I might have some of that.
Yes.
I get very obsessed with things for a while, and then I'm like, enough. Move on to the next thing.
Move on.
Yeah.
He has this weird face where it's like, after the 30 days, if he keeps doing that thing, then he starts the thing, and then the next 8 hours he doesn't do it. So it's all good. It's good that we're identifying these issues, right? So either we fix them, we acknowledge them, right? What was the framework, right? We acknowledge, we tell the truth, right? We
you share the framework with me.
We reframe the truth, and then we take action, whether that's doing or bringing somebody that can help us do it. So that's awesome.
Maybe I need some goats so I can focus.
It does help. Yeah.
Do you ever sit down with the goat while you're working, kind of like petting it like like a villain,
I have not done that, but when my brain's about to blow up and I'm just done, I'm like, I'm gonna go play with the goats for 20 minutes.
That is so cool.
Come back and you're all refreshed.
So cool.
Just throwing this out there for your next campaign of whatever you're gonna do. You should totally dress up
a live show out in the goat yard.
Yeah, like as a villain, and just like have the goat, like epic lighting. Oh, that would be so good.
Oh, that's so awesome. You're like, why should you own goats to crush in your business? This is so awesome.
The goat framework.
The goat framework. So good. Monica, where can people find you? Where can people find the book, connect with you if they're interested to get to know you a little bit better?
Yeah, absolutely. I am super easy to find as long as you spell my name right. But it's monicaparkin.ca. So Monica with a C, or mortgagemonica.ca because it's in Canada. A book is on Amazon, Audible, Kindle, whatever. Audible seems to just be the popular thing, though. It was #1 new release on Audible a couple months ago. And the
Cool.
Audible just, I guess people like to listen while they drive. But yeah, it's just monicaparkin.ca or Mortgage Monica. Super easy to find on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, on the World Wide Web.
We're gonna leave all the links right below, guys. All you gotta do is scroll down and click that link.
I was looking for domains right now, thegoatlady.com, but it is taken, unfortunately.
Can't believe I didn't get that one.
It could be like the CanadaGoatLady.com.
You can see my goat on the bottom of the first page of my homepage of my website if you're really, really desperate to see it.
I do want to see the goats. I mean,
yeah.
I feel like they were the most talked about in this show today.
That's so exciting. But again, anything else you want to add before we head out?
No, just thanks so much for having me on the show. Thanks for your infinite kindness when I no-showed. And yeah, if you're an introvert and you're trying to figure out your way, like you got superpowers you don't even know you have. You just, that whole repetition plus environment, it's like the opportunity meets preparation thing, right? Yeah. Like just start working on the skills you need, start taking baby steps and just look for evidence that it's working and keep moving forward.
Thank you so
much.
much.
Thank you, Monica. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Don't worry about the no-show. That was totally my fault. I didn't.
You totally made it up today.
It was totally my fault.
You're
but
too
it's
nice.
Okay. Thank
You're
you
too nice. Yeah. Fonzie, anything else you want to add?
I'm about to go get myself a goat. That's what I'm about to do.
Sure. You talk to
best
Katie.
In pairs. You're gonna need 2.
2? All right. Hey, 2 goats. That's fine.
Monica, he's staying at my house right now. We don't need any more goats. We have 2 kids and a husky.
A
okay?
baby, a goat. No big deal. It's all good.
I just want to put this out there. My brother just said we don't need any more goats. He's referring to me, the greatest of all time, the goat Fonzie.
All right. With that said, guys, thank you so much for tuning to the Content Profit Podcast. Go ahead and follow the show in your favorite social media and at Biz Brosco.
That is right. And if Monica here helped you move one step closer towards your goal, please don't forget to share this episode and leave an honest review. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
See ya.